Hey guys, Killer Off-Road Hobbies here, doing a video as a request. This is for 9 and 45 CCW. Thanks for following my channel, I really appreciate it. Well, here they are, side by side. The Traxxas E-Revo and the Arrma Nero Big Rock. Now, you asked to do this comparison video because they both run cantilever suspension, and you know they're pretty similar trucks. And even though this thing sits a lot higher now because of the long arm rocker kit, and you know I stiffened up the suspension and it's got a big body on it, you know they're relatively really close to the in dimensions wise. Like this one's a little bit wider, but they are actually like close. Check that out. They're like super close in wheelbase. I mean, I'd say less than a half an inch. You know, they're pretty similar trucks. If you count the wing, the E-Revo is actually longer than the Nero Big Rock. It doesn't look like it, but it is like about an inch longer if you count the wing. If you don't count the wing, the Nero is slightly longer just because it's got a little bit longer wheelbase. But the E-Revo has more of a slope back with the bumper sticking out way farther, and you know it's kind of sloped back, and then it's got the wing. But all in all, they're relatively, you know, similar to the same size. As I said in my review video, they both run cantilever suspension, but the E-Revo suspension I like better. That's just a personal thing for me. One thing that is cool is this Nero shell is extremely durable. I mean, it's going to be far superior over the stock Traxxas E-Revo body, but we're going to go ahead and get rid of the bodies and get down to the truck. Okay, so looking at the layout, I mean, they're not all that different. I mean, you know, there are some big differences. You know, this has vertical mounting battery trays where this is horizontal. You know, you stick them in and then you stick them standing up on this. They both have lay down shocks. Of course, the shocks on the Nero are substantially bigger. They're aluminum bodied, you know, they have huge thick springs on them, but that's because this thing weighs like 13 pounds and this thing only weighs probably 8, I'd say, probably tops, yeah, about 8 pounds, maybe a little bit more without batteries. The systems in these two trucks, like this thing has a ton of power, has a lot of power. As far as having more power than the Traxxas E-Revo, I'm not sure. I mean, they're just different. It's just a different style, you know, like this is much more linear power. It's nice and smooth up through the power range, where this, it's like, you know, pretty linear, then it just explodes with power. Now, we'll get into some differences, but the price, actually the price is relatively the same too. This thing comes with steel drive shafts, but if you've watched my videos, you can see that the steel drive shafts are good, but the grub screws that they put in them are horrible. I don't know if I just got a bad set of grub screws. I don't know. I haven't researched if people are having problems with the grub screws, but I've definitely had problems with the grub screws. So, you know, outside of that, I mean, that is a small problem. It's annoying, to say the least. I've been replacing them with Traxxas scrub screws. They're a lot longer, and they seem pretty, like, more durable. I don't know what the deal is with the grub screws on this, but also another thing about this is the battery trays pop open, you know, sometimes. And I do have to say that these little plastic pieces they put on the front and rear bumper to tuck the body over. I don't know why they did that. These things, like, because when you hit hard on the front or the rear, they just pop out, and then it bends the bumper down, and then you got this flap sticking up. I'm actually thinking about just dremeling these off, just cutting them off, because they're just pointless. I don't know why Arrma put these on here, knowing that people were probably gonna like have some front down jumps or whatever. The bumper on the Traxxas E-Revo I do like. I do like the fact that this doesn't have a wing on it. I'm not a huge fan of the wing. I didn't want to take it off because it does kind of protect the back of the body. But at the same time, I mean, it just, I don't know. The wing, whether it has one or not, it's not really a big deal. I would rather a wheelie bar on either one of these than a wing. But these things are pretty similar. You know, this one's definitely got a bigger, bulkier, heavier duty chassis. You know, this one's a little more lighter, agile. They both look difficult to work on. I haven't worked on this one yet, but I am pretty sure that it's, you know, even though they drilled these holes in the side so you can get to the screws in there and everything, I mean, it's still going to be difficult to work on this. You know, especially over like a buggy layout. I just don't get why Arrma decided to go, you know, this whole new chassis, just re-innovate themselves and then charge a ton of money for it, because I personally think they could have figured out some kind of way to put this cantilever suspension on their buggy layout. And, you know, if you want a cantilever suspension, you know, that's cool, but, you know, to make this whole big, difficult to work on chassis, I'm not a huge fan of it. Especially because of the weight. I mean, it's just so heavy. When you're going to be jumping this thing like a lot, like I will be, and it's hitting the ground, you know, it's just unnecessary weight that is going to stress everything. It's going to stress all the suspension components. I mean, I've heard about people repeatedly busting the shock eyelets over and over and over, and that's just from the sheer weight of this new chassis they made. Yeah, the chassis might be durable, it might last through a nuclear explosion or whatever, but everything around it's being taxed because of how bulky and heavy this chassis is. Now with this chassis is crazy light, you know, super light, all plastic, which is a good and a bad thing. I mean, you save on weight, but it's less, you know, it's less durable than an aluminum chassis. But I don't know, this thing also really hard to work on. Well, it's not hard, it's just it's time consuming, I'll say. This one looks like it's going to be way more difficult to work on. This thing is time consuming. Like literally, when I was pulling out the diffs, you literally have to pull everything off of it. You just have the chassis left, either the front or the rear, or if you did both diffs like I did, like literally all I had was the little chassis tub with the motor left on it. You have to take the shocks off. You gotta take the bulkheads off. You gotta take the whole skid plate off the underneath. You gotta take the bumpers off. You gotta take the wing off. I mean, it is quite an ordeal just to get to the diffs. I mean, especially when you're used to working on a Creighton where you just take out 4 screws and you just pull the diff out. I mean, it's crazy simple. The thing that gets me about this is, like yesterday I was talking about this being old technology, right? Like this thing is old tech, and you know, they still sell it for a tremendous amount of money. But the funny thing is, this is new tech and they sell it for a tremendous amount of money. But I don't see this as being any better than this for the most part. And I don't know, it's just like it's a more complicated layout than it needs to be, I think. Like, I don't see all of this stuff as being any more durable than a Creighton, for sure, or the Outcast, but you're paying, you know, $300 and something more for this just because of the chassis. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, the diff frames, me as a basher, you know, the diff frames are irrelevant because I'm only going to use the center. I mean, when you put it in drift mode, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to drift it on asphalt? I mean, it's so big and heavy. You could, I guess, you know, put the right tires on it and stuff. But, you know, as far as drifting it around on the dirt, basically when you put it in drift mode, it's just completely uncontrollable for me. I mean, it could be different for somebody else, but just uncontrollable. The tires are too hard, you know, to get any real traction and bite when you're trying to drift. You know, they just kind of skimp across it, and then it's got enough power to where it just spins out all the time. And you know, you can try and feather through it, but it's difficult to say the least. The crawl mode, worthless. This thing is not meant to crawl. It's just not a crawler. It's not even geared, set up. You know, if they wanted to make a decent, possibly a decent like Summit type vehicle, they would have had to make it censored, but it's not. It's sensorless, brushless system, so it cogs really bad at low speeds. Now, I was also asked by 9 and 45 CCW which one I'm most disappointed in, because I shared my thoughts about the Traxxas E-Revo yesterday on my review video. I haven't done a review on this yet. I'm still, you know, in the midst of like testing it out and everything. I want to get at least a couple more runs in it with this thing. I want to talk to Arrma also. I want to contact them and, you know, kind of just tell them my grievances. I don't think they're going to care, but, you know, hopefully they do maybe pay a little bit of mind to the things I have to say, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. The truck that I am more disappointed with at this point is going to be the Nero. Sorry about that. It's going to be the Nero. And my justification for that is because, like I've been saying, this is old tech. This is old tech. You know, they came out with this over a decade ago. You know, yeah, it still sells like crazy. People love this truck. And I'm not trying to tell people not to love it. I'm just giving you my point of view on the truck as I've experienced it through bashing with it. And that's what these videos are all about. This is my point of view. And if you bash like me, you like Big Air, you know, all of that stuff, I mean, that's what this channel's for, to inform you of what could possibly go wrong, whether I like them personally. But, you know, I'm not per se not taking a shot at Traxxas just because I don't like the E-Revo. I just don't like the E-Revo. You know, it has nothing to do with Traxxas as a company. Yes, I do think they need to get on the ball and start coming out with new products and, you know, just innovating and, you know, just tinkering around with stuff or whatever. But this is brand new. This is a new chassis. They put a lot of time and effort and money into designing this thing. And I personally think they needed to actually real world test it a lot more than they did. Because the battery tray thing that should not be a problem. They wanted to make this easy for people because you can load your batteries without having to take the shell off. Well, what's the point of having that if the battery tray is just going to pop open repeatedly on jumps? I mean, it becomes more of a hassle. I'd rather pull off body pins and know my batteries are safe and I'm not going to have to worry about them than having a slightly more convenient battery tray that's going to give me grief. Another thing is, like I said, the weight. It's just too heavy. It is too heavy for the components that are on this RC. And the chassis layout, they should have thought about workability. I mean, drilling these holes in the side of the battery tray, that's all good and fun, but still, think about when you're putting it back in there. You have to literally you're going to have to put your hex head wrench through the battery tray and then hold, you know, you're going to have to hold your screw up in there somehow and then try and get it threaded in and make sure everything's lined up. I mean, it's not going to be fun working on this thing. you know, I don't mind working on the RCs. I don't mind taking time to fix them right and everything, but it just seems like it's going to be a huge deal if I have to get into this, you know, get into the guts of this thing. But that's kind of my comparison video on these things. I mean, as of right now, I'm not a fan of the E-Revo. I know people love it. I'm not a fan of it. That's why I put these tires on it, and I'm selling it on eBay. Hopefully I can get a little bit of money, because it is, you know, a solid RC for somebody that's not me. I'm way more disappointed in this thing, not only because, you know, it's brand new and it's from a company that I actually respected for the Python and Callion and Creighton, but I also just think it's just not, as of right now, I'm just going to say it's not an RC that is worth anywhere near what you pay for these. But we will see. I mean, you know, if grub screws are my biggest problem, this thing will get decent marks from me in a later review video. But if I start, you know, replace the grub screws and start having additional problems, this and that, you know, it just kind of snowballs. You know, it's not gonna work out very well for my review video on this thing. Well, anyways, this is a comparison between the E-Revo and the Nero. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for your comments and everything. I really appreciate, you know, my channel kind of getting a little bit of traction. You guys are awesome. Like I said, if you guys want to see a video, just let me know. I'll do my best to get it out to you guys. This is Killer Off-Road Hobbies comparison, Nero and Revo. Peace out, guys.